There was a time when just seeing it glide around the corner would make you stop. Not because it was big, not because it was loud, but because it looked unlike anything else on the road. Sleek, curved. The future, playing the part of a city bus. The GMC RTS wasn't just public transportation, it was a symbol, a statement, a promise that said, even a bus can be beautiful. In the 1970s, American cities were booming, but the buses, still the same old boxy, noisy relics from the 1950s. General Motors wouldn't stand for that. They didn't want to fix the past. They wanted to rewrite everything. And so the RTS was born. A machine from the future, rolling down American streets. And the story behind it is stranger, bolder, and more unforgettable than you think. Not just a bus, but a symbol of the future. It didn't look like a bus. Not the kind you grew up with. Not the kind you avoided. It looked like something NASA might have parked at the curb. While most city buses were still boxy, loud, and built like metal shoeboxes, the RTS glided through traffic like it didn't belong to this era. It didn't just move people, it made people look. Everything about it was different. The steep, sloped windshield, the smooth, curved side panels, the rounded front end that sliced through the wind instead of smashing into it. It was elegant in a way no bus had dared to be. Not industrial, not utilitarian, but sculpted, like it came off a designer's sketchpad, not an engineer's blueprint. Some called it a diesel spaceship. Others just called it that thing I saw once and never forgot. Because the RTS wasn't just a new model, it was a turning point, a signal that even something as overlooked as public transit could be reimagined. And when it rolled into your neighborhood, you knew the future had arrived, on 6 wheels and a roaring Detroit diesel. The moment GM saw an opening. By the early 1970s, America was changing fast, sometimes too fast. Cities were growing, highways were clogged, and gas, well, it wasn't cheap anymore. The oil crisis hit hard. Suddenly, the roar of big V8 engines didn't sound so sweet when you were stuck in traffic, watching the fuel gauge drop like a rock. Pollution was piling up, smog choked city skylines, and the country was starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, the future couldn't run on chrome and horsepower alone. But while the world shifted, buses didn't. Most were still the same clunky boxes built in the 50s, noisy, cramped, ugly. They looked tired. They felt worse. General Motors saw it for what it was, an opportunity. Not to tweak, not to patch, but to start over. They didn't just want to build a better bus. They wanted to build the bus, one that looked like it belonged to tomorrow. And in a time when nobody expected innovation from public transit, GM decided to make a move so bold it would change how cities moved for decades to come. RTS-2, the bold prototype. It started with a question. What if a city bus didn't have to look like a city bus? In 1973, General Motors unveiled the first prototype of what they called the RTS-2. It wasn't just a design, it was a declaration. Gone were the flat panels and right angles. In their place, a sleek fiberglass shell, lightweight, flexible, and molded with smooth, flowing lines. It was the kind of body you'd expect on a show car, not a city shuttle. But GM didn't stop there. They introduced modular panels, sections of the body that could be unbolted and swapped in hours, not days. No cutting, no welding, no repainting. And under the skin, there were whispers of something even more ambitious. A hybrid powertrain, gas and electric, at a time when most Americans still thought hybrid just meant better corn. Sure, the hybrid system didn't make it into production, but the idea, the vision, that stuck. Because RTS-2 wasn't just a prototype. It was proof that GM was swinging big. They weren't building a bus for the next contract. They were building a concept for the next era, and in doing so, they blurred the line between mass transit and modern design, in a way no one had dared to before. Sculpted by air, not just engineered. Most buses are built to function. The RTS, it was built to move through the air, not just push it aside. While other manufacturers focused on rivets and rivet counts, General Motors took their bus into the wind tunnel. Yes, the same kind used for airplanes and Indy cars. It was the first time a city bus had ever been shaped not just by engineers, but by air itself. Every curve, every angle, every slope served a purpose. That sharply sloped windshield, designed to cut drag, the rounded nose and tapering roofline, there to smooth the airflow over and around the body. Even the side panels, seamless and gently contoured, were crafted to reduce turbulence at speed. The result wasn't just beautiful, it was efficient. Less drag meant better fuel economy, something cities desperately needed during the energy crisis. Less wind resistance meant a quieter cabin, especially on long suburban routes. And the smoother the airflow, the easier the ride, less buffeting, less noise, less fatigue. It glided, not growled. For the first time, a transit bus wasn't just engineered. It was aerodynamically sculpted, like a machine that finally understood the wind it moved through. And that changed everything about how it looked, sounded, and felt. A luxury ride for the everyday passenger. Most people didn't expect comfort when they boarded a city bus. They expected bumps, rattles, noise, a backache by mile 3. But the RTS changed all that, starting from the ground up. Instead of relying on stiff steel springs, GM gave the RTS a full air suspension system. Not something you'd expect on public transit. Something you'd find on a high-end motor coach or a limousine. At the heart of it were rubberized air bellows, filled with compressed air and designed to adapt on the fly, adjusting automatically to road conditions and passenger load. The result? A ride that felt smooth. Really smooth. The bus no longer clunked over potholes. It glided. It didn't bounce through dips and humps. It floated over them. Passengers noticed. Conversations didn't have to compete with metal-on-metal vibration. Long rides felt less draining, and if you were seated near the back, you didn't feel like you were riding a jackhammer anymore. Drivers noticed too. Less shaking meant less fatigue, especially on long shifts across rough city streets. It was comfort where you least expected it, luxury where no one asked for it. But once you felt it, you couldn't forget it. Rethinking the inside, a cabin designed around people. Step inside the RTS, and you could feel it right away. This wasn't just built for transportation. It was built for people. GM didn't stop at performance or styling. They went deeper, into the cabin. And what they created was something no city bus had ever offered, a premium experience. The seating layout wasn't rigid or cramped. Instead, seats were arranged with a gentle curve, offset just enough to open up space and reduce that packed-in feeling during rush hour. Windows? They weren't flat. They arched upward with the roofline, letting in light and offering wide, panoramic views of the city outside. Suddenly, a ride across town didn't feel like being boxed in. The ceiling sloped higher toward the front, making boarding easier. Overhead lighting was soft and even, no harsh glares or deep shadows. And the insulation? Quiet. You could hold a conversation without raising your voice, even on a full bus. Thanks to the rear-mounted engine, the front floor sat lower, fewer steps, easier access, a subtle nod to accessibility, long before ADA laws made it mandatory. It wasn't fancy for the sake of flair. It was functional, thoughtful, human, and once you rode it, every other bus felt like a step backward. A driver's seat built like a cockpit. Behind the wheel of the RTS, things felt different, on purpose. Because GM didn't just redesign the cabin for passengers, they reimagined the entire experience for the person who had to live in that seat all day. The driver. Gone was the flat, utilitarian dashboard of traditional buses. In its place, a curved wraparound console that looked more like a cockpit than a control panel. Inspired by both aviation and automotive design, the RTS driver's area was built with ergonomics in mind. Every switch, dial, and lever was placed within easy reach. No stretching, no leaning, no second guessing. The layout flowed around the driver's body, not the other way around. Visibility improved, response time shortened. The entire experience felt more intuitive, more in tune with the driver's rhythm. And after hours on the road, that mattered. Less unnecessary movement meant less strain. Better layout meant better control, especially in tight city traffic. And the focused, enclosed feel of the cockpit gave drivers a sense of purpose, like they weren't just operating a vehicle, but piloting something built for precision. In an era where comfort was usually reserved for passengers, the RTS gave a little bit back to the ones behind the wheel. And it made all the difference. The genius of modular panels. Most city buses were built like tanks, solid, welded, and stubborn. Great for durability, terrible for maintenance. A dented panel? Get ready to cut, grind, weld, and repaint. Sometimes the bus would be out of service for days over something as simple as a scrape. But the RTS changed the rules. Instead of welding everything into a single rigid shell, GM broke the body into modular panels, each one bolted in place, not fused. Made from a mix of fiberglass and lightweight steel, these panels could be unbolted and swapped out quickly. No torches, no paint booths, no downtime. Got a busted fender? Just unbolt it and bolt on a fresh one. The bus could be back on the road the same afternoon. And because the panels were standardized across the fleet, transit agencies could stock them like spare parts, ready to go when needed. It also meant less rust, less corrosion from salty winter roads, and longer lifespans for buses in even the harshest northern climates. More uptime, fewer repair costs, and an exterior that always looked sharp, even after a run-in with a loading pole or a taxi that got too close. It was smart. It was simple. And for city budgets across America, it was a game changer, style that was more than skin deep. Most city buses looked like what they were, big, boxy tools built to do a job and nothing more. But the RTS, it was something else entirely. Thanks to its modular panels and seamless construction, the RTS had a clean, uninterrupted silhouette. No exposed welds, no clunky edges, just smooth curves and quiet confidence. From a distance, it looked like a shuttle from a science fiction film. Closer up, it felt like a design study come to life. Not flashy, not showy, but undeniably modern and unmistakably intentional. The way each panel fit into the next gave it the feel of aerodynamic precision, almost like the body had been grown, not built. Even standing still, the RTS looked like it was in motion. And that was the point. GM wasn't just building a better machine. They were challenging the idea that public transportation had to be ugly or boring. They proved that beauty wasn't reserved for sports cars or limousines. It could exist in the everyday, it could serve the public, and maybe, just maybe, it could inspire someone waiting at the curb to see the future rolling up, one perfectly curved panel at a time. More than a bus, a vision on wheels. The RTS wasn't perfect. Some of its boldest ideas, like the hybrid powertrain, never made it past the drawing board. Others evolved slowly or got watered down over time. But that doesn't matter, because what the RTS did achieve was far bigger than any spec sheet. It changed how cities saw public transportation, no longer just a necessity, but a chance to innovate, to inspire, even to impress. It laid the groundwork for human-centered design in mass transit. Not just, how do we move people, but how do we make them feel while we move them? It pushed the bus industry forward by decades. And long after the last RTS was retired, its influence kept rolling through the streets. In every curved windshield, every low-floor layout, every design that dared to think beyond the bare minimum. The RTS wasn't just a machine. It was a statement about ambition, about optimism, and about what happens when a company like GM decides to swing for the fences. It wasn't just a product of its time. It was a glimpse of the time we all hoped was coming. These days, you don't see many GMC RTS buses on the road. But when someone mentions one, their eyes still light up. Because it wasn't just a bus. It was a relic from a bold era. A time when people dared to dream of public transit as part of the future, not just a burden from the past. It was proof that a bus could be beautiful. It could make people stop and look. It could inspire. What about you? Have you ever seen an RTS in person? What do you think made it so special? Share your story in the comments below, because it's your memories that bring machines like this back to life. If you found this video meaningful, don't forget to hit like, and be sure to subscribe so you won't miss the next ride, where we rediscover the machines we thought were forgotten, but still live on in our memories. See you in the next video.